Before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know that if you've been thinking about franchising your business, but you weren't sure when the right time to start might be, we have the perfect motivation for you. Our Franchise Your Business prices are actually going up on June 1st. But the great news is, if you sign up for our franchise blueprint or another portion of the project, by the end of May, by May 31st, you can lock in our current pricing forever. We'll hold that price for your current company. You can take advantage of this offer by contacting us. You can email us. You can email me or someone on our staff. My email is tom@bigskyfranchise.com. We haven't raised prices in coming up on 4 years, so we're doing that. So you have up until May 31st. So please contact me, tom@bigskyfranchise.com, or you can reach out to us on our website, bigskyfranchiseteam.com, and submit a contact form. And now let's get back to the show. Welcome to the Multiply Your Success podcast, where each week we help growth-minded entrepreneurs and franchise leaders take the next step in their expansion journey. I'm your host, Tom Dufour, CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team. And with summer right around the corner, you might have interns getting to start at your organization or possibly leading into the fall. And as you're preparing for these potential interns, are you ready for them? Are you prepared to help them be set up for success? Or maybe you're planning to get around to it and you're thinking, but I really don't know what to do for that. And if you fall into either one of those categories, then today's episode is for you. In our episode today, we interview Rob Khoury, who's written 2 different books on internships, one for the intern and then one for you as the intern manager. A little background on Rob. He's the co-founder and CEO of Agile Rainmakers, a high-impact business development consulting and advisory firm based in Chicago's Gold Coast. He has 20-plus years of experience in the financial industry, and he has served in many roles, ranging from an equity derivatives trader, portfolio manager, corporate strategist, chief operating officer, recruiter, hedge fund executive, all the way to private equity investor. Rob takes great pleasure in supporting college students and recent graduates in making career and life choices that support the fulfillment of their life's goals. He has mentored and hired many interns over the years and has a passion for ensuring their success. He's also led personal and professional developments for Landmark worldwide. Rob has an undergraduate in electrical engineering from Princeton University and an MBA from Duke University School of Business. If you've got interns or are thinking of hiring interns, this episode is for you. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today because you're an intern expert and you've written a few books on the subject. And the one in particular, why I'm so excited to have you on, is really to talk about how to better manage interns in a business. And speaking from experience, I know I've brought interns into our organization that I would say went at best probably lukewarm. It could have gone a lot better in terms of providing an opportunity for the student to gain more out of it, as well as an opportunity for the business to have taken more out of it. And so I know you've literally written a book on the subject, on intern management. And just as an opening here, I'd love for you just to talk about some of the principles to kind of help make internships and interns better or exceptional.
Tom, thanks for having me on your show. I'm very excited to be here. I've broken it down into 9 principles, and those principles include transparency, harmony, empathy, buoyancy, respect, intentionality, discovery, generosity, and empowerment. And if I were to boil it down to ultimately, it's really empowerment. Put yourself in the intern's shoes and what would you want, and have them be empowered to learn, empowered to grow, empowered to think, make decisions, etc. I think so many managers fail in the very basic of preparing for the intern that they know has been coming for weeks or months, and having a mindset of, hey, we're going to make sure they're empowered, because if they're empowered, they're going to do great stuff and it's going to come back to the company or the organization. So the main principle I might kind of emphasize today would be empowerment.
It's interesting you bring that up. I'll say one intern, I can just speak from our own experience that we had in that I thought went well for both participants, for the students as well as for us. We had an intern in one summer and, in fact, actually helped build our whole structure and program for this current podcast. And he was empowered to essentially kind of figure it out and help us go through that. And I think he had a really great time with it. And much of what he put together, we still operate under what he had recommended. And that's been 4 years ago almost. That's a great way to break that down and describe that.
That touches on another one, which is the discovery piece, right? So if you come to the internship to discover who they are, what they can do, today you will absolutely be impressed. I had an intern I hired over the fall, and he came to me after a couple of months and said, I have an idea for an Instagram page. He says he's been studying it. He'll create this Instagram page, intern versus manager. He's expecting to have 10,000 followers in 2 weeks. I empowered him. I don't know anything about Instagram and I had a lot of doubts, but I'm like, okay, well, you see something, I'm going to empower you. So he went to work on it. 2 weeks later, he didn't have 10,000 followers. He had 60,000 followers. And it's called intern versus manager or intern vs manager. So you really, if you stand in discovering who they are and what they can do, kind of like, for you, Tom, you're going to see things that are going to last 4 years and really have you excited about having had them intern with you. It's amazing.
Interesting to hear you say tens of thousands of followers now in 2 weeks. That's impressive work. Mind you, I just saw a post, someone had been working for years and just was able to secure 500 followers and was enthused about that. So to see that kind of growth in just a short period of time is remarkable. As we think about bringing interns into our company, summer is fast approaching. So summer interns, or even thinking next fall for fall interns coming into an organization, how can managers really start to prepare for these interns? And I think about our business leaders that are going to listen in, many of which are what we describe as very successful entrepreneurs that have a successful business. And they're probably pretty busy. And so they'd probably like to get one, but don't know what to do. So how can they prepare for that intern?
Best piece of advice I can offer is to schedule a 30-minute call with them before they show up and get to know them a little bit. What are they interested in? What inspired them to, look at interning with you and all that? Really get to know them and get to know what they want to get out of their internship, and reciprocate. Share what you're doing. Share where you see they could add value. Have some ideas of what they could do, and then after the call, you don't have to come to an agreement on the call. After the call, kind of let it gestate and think about what you can do from there to prepare for them to come, whether it's in a week or 2 weeks or a month, whatever it might be. And I have found that extremely valuable because if I know someone has a certain interest, I can, within my organization, find a project that is suitable to them. And boy, if they have an interest and it's something they are highly motivated to learn, they're going to do great work. And the best example is, Instagram wasn't anything I even cared about, but the intern was like, hey, I like it. I see it. This could go. And I'm like, okay, what do you need from me? Well, a little acting every week. Okay, we'll act I'll give you an hour every week. You tell me what you want me to do, we'll do it. So, but that only came about because of conversations that led to understanding who they are, what they want, knowing the organization, what we're about, and having it match. I mean, I'm out to bring dignity to the internship discourse. And whether it's through books or Instagram or podcasts, whatever it may be, I want people to know there's a lot more to internships than meets the eye. So that's what I would recommend. Get to know them before they show up.
You mentioned that word dignity. And in preparation for this, one of the things that really came out is, as the employer in this situation, why is it important for companies and leaders and that manager of that intern to be weaving dignity into that internship?
If you think back to your very first internship, you remember everything. You remember who treated you well, who didn't, who cared, who didn't. You remember so many details. I mean, it's amazing. And it might have been 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So think about that now. When you bring in an intern, you're going to leave an impression, and that impression is going to be there for 15, 20, 30, 40 years. How do you want them talking about you and your organization? So if you don't weave dignity into it, they're going to think a certain thing about you. Who knows what that is? And they're going to be thinking that for a long, long time. And it may impact potential opportunities that you don't get in the future, because this is someone who's probably pretty bright and talented, who's interested in your industry. They're going to either end up with you or somewhere else within your industry. And people talk. So when you weave dignity into the internship, you're signaling that you care about them, you care about your organization, you care about the future. It just makes all the sense in the world. Too often, internships are folks show up, they don't do real industry work. They just have something on their resume later to get the next job. That doesn't have dignity. And later on, if somebody asks about the organization, well, I just sat around, they had me listen on the phone. I just had someone say that to me a week or two ago. I was at this big bank and they didn't know what to do with me. They just had me sitting and listening in on conversations. I was, bored and felt like useless in a lot of ways. Well, they wasted an opportunity, and that's how that person is talking about that big bank, 10, 15, 20 years later. It's like, it's uncanny. So weaving dignity into the internship is, I think, really smart business, and sets the intern up and you as the manager and your organization for a far brighter future than if you don't do it.
That's a really interesting story you share, especially about a large organization. It's probably easy for an intern to get lost or just kind of put in a copy room or something, But for our small business leaders that are tuning in, seems to me it's a lot harder for that intern to get lost there. And I would think that's an advantage. I mean, I even think back to my very first internship, as you described that. I vividly remember everything, and it was a small business that I worked for as an intern. And I did everything from just what you might expect part of an intern thing to be, some just copy pasting stuff for some marketing and cold mailers that they were sending out, all the way to it was an events company helping organize and helping run part of this very large, very big event. So it's kind of this whole gamut of things, right? That because it was a small business, I was able to work with the owner and I was able to work with a vice president at the company at a big bank or a big company. I'm probably not able to do. So maybe talk about how a small organization, small business might be able to provide some unique opportunities or as compared to a larger company.
Well, what you can do with a small organization is give them 5 projects. The students today, they're multitaskers, and you don't want to give them projects serially. You want to give them in parallel. These are electrical engineering metaphors, right? That's what I was trained as an electrical engineer. Give them many projects at the same time. That way, they can bounce from one to the other and stay productive. That way, when they're waiting for feedback, they can go to the next one. That way, when there's a natural pause because they're waiting for data to come back, they can work on something else. But think about it in terms of how, if I were a college student today, how would I want my internship to look? Would I want to work on one project the whole summer? I don't know that that's typically what they want. I think they want exposure to a lot of different things. They want the projects to be meaningful, and they want feedback. Well, weave that all in. It's not that hard. And in fact, it may be even easier to come up with, 5 projects where each one might take, 2 or 3 weeks versus to come up with one big one that takes 10 weeks and, everything's on the line to make something happen with that one project at the end. If you give them 5, well, maybe 2 are outstanding, 2 are okay, and one of them is a real good learning opportunity.
Maybe just put you on the spot a little bit here. And are there any kind of examples for a small business? Let's say maybe you're a home services provider and you're a painting contractor or a deck builder, or maybe you run a restaurant or a boutique retail operation or something like that. Maybe a few examples that you've seen that you thought were great or heard stories from interns that they really appreciated.
Yeah. Well, the first one is always, I mean, this is low hanging fruit. If you run a small business, when's the last time you surveyed your customers or surveyed your clients? So I have the interns run a survey, but I have them take ownership of it, and we go back and forth, and we do a lot of A/B testing on the fly to see what gets the most responses. What are, in terms of the subject of the survey, what about the questions themselves? So there's the whole process. If you give me, if you have 1,000 customers, okay, we'll break it up into pieces and we'll get the survey out in pieces until we get the response rate we want. And then we'll send it to all the rest. So that's one. And, we've worked with a company that sells sinks and they hadn't done a survey in 15 years. So they do a customer survey, and the next thing you know, they're finding out things they had assumed were a certain way, or they're finding opportunities they didn't know were there. Why? They're now more in touch with their customer. So that one's, to me, a low-hanging fruit one. Another one is to have them just go through your website. How does your website look compared to all the others? We had a client last summer, and they looked at all the SEO, all the links, everything around the website to optimize it. And sure enough, lots of opportunities. They were like, well, these links don't work. Do you realize that when we do a search, it doesn't come up, et cetera? So these are, tech natives. And again, go back to what they're strong in, what they're interested in, and they'll fly. They could do a competitive analysis of your website with their competition. Look at the competitors' websites, look at your own, and let's compare them. What does it show? How's it different? And then they'll happily update your website based on what you're finding. So they could do a survey, they could update your website, never mind the social media stuff and the footprint you leave there, because they're always flying around LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and all that. Okay, great. Let's come back and find ways to add value in those areas. The other piece too, though, is, what if you have returns? You're getting all these returns on your product. Say, here's a little research project for you. Why are these returns happening? I want you to quantify it, investigate it, and come back to me with some recommendations. And sure enough, they'll find stuff that you never had the interest or time into digging into, but they did. And so that adds value as well. And each of these projects is, a couple of weeks. But, you add up 4 or 5 of them, and the next thing you know, they've got a lot of different experience, and various aspects of your small business are shining a lot brighter than they would have at the beginning of the summer. Now they're moving forward into the fall, et cetera, and you're looking a lot better to attain customers or do a better job providing service.
The next question kind of gets back to these examples you were providing and really bringing that intern into the organization. So what can companies do to make their selection process or interview process better, to make sure they're matching what they're looking for with the right intern, I guess, because each intern's looking for something, and matching all of that together?
Step one is to align internally on what you're looking for in an intern. Step two is to create a job description that really accentuates all the positives of the opportunity. Make it an exciting job description. When they first read it, they're like, I got to work there. This sounds fabulous. Okay. Step three, have a consistent interview process. Same questions, same, whether you give feedback or not, timeline, et cetera. That makes it easy for everyone to know where they're at. It also brings integrity to the whole process. And then make sure you get back to them. I cannot tell you how many students, they didn't get back to me with a yes or a no or anything. Okay. Get back to them. Say, hey, we're going to get back to you in 3 weeks, and then do it. And if you can't, in 3 weeks, tell them, hey, we need another week or 2. All right. But definitely get back to them. Again, that reputation long-term, that dignity long-term, that has no dignity to not get back to someone that you interviewed with, to tell them a yes or a no. And that happens today in 2024. It's unbelievable. That you got to make that a priority. Okay. Then when you extend an offer, all right, let them know, hey, get back to me in whatever, a couple weeks, whatever it is. And then let them know once they say yes, we want to talk to you every 4 to 6 weeks. Find out how school's going. Just a half-hour call. How's school going? We'll share with you about the business. I'll tell you, in about 60 or 90 minutes leading up to the internship, you really get to know them. They get to know you. When they show up that first day, all those nervous willies are out. And there's a bit of a relationship to build on, and off you go. So those are just some tips. There's others, but there's some tips about what to do to bring on great talent to your organization.
Now, in today's world, with so many companies being remote or virtual or just maybe even internships, how have you seen organizations have a successful internship with someone that is doing this remotely?
I haven't seen a lot of organizations doing it remotely to speak to that. I can speak to what we do when we have our remote days. And I have had some interns work remotely in the past. I don't favor it, but one of the key things you want to do is every morning go over the mission, the vision, the values. Invite them to share what they see in it that day. Invite them to share with you what it is they plan to do today. And then have a meeting towards the end of the day. How'd you do? What's left? But don't have your meeting at the end of the day at 5, have it at 3. And then there's an hour and a half or so to get more work done till the next day. So it's really important to have them grounded every day with a quick meeting on why they're there, why the company exists, all of that, and then what they say they're going to do. Because when people establish their own objectives, they're more likely to accomplish them. So what they say they're going to do that day, great. Then check in around 3. How'd you do? They tell you, all right, what's left? Okay, what can you get done till 5? And then let them do that, repeat the next day. When we work, that's what we do in person. When we work remote, we add in an extra check-in around 11:30 because people drift. So I want to know, what do you plan to do between 9 a.m. and 11:30? Okay, we're going to talk at 11:30. How'd it go? All right, great. Next check-in's at 3. Okay, what are you going to do between 11:30 and 3? Okay, great. Now let's check in at 5. Now, it sounds like a lot of work as a manager. It's actually far less work because it's 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there throughout the day, versus you don't check in on them. They take a huge left turn, and they blow a few days going in some other direction or not being productive. And then now you're trying to excavate success when it hasn't gone that way. I mean, if you're not checking in on that intern for a week or 2 weeks, who knows what's going on, right? But little check-ins throughout will make all the difference in their success and yours as a manager.
I know you have your intern management book available. So how can people get in touch with you, learn a little bit more about this, get a copy of your book if this is something they want to implement in their own organization?
So the book, Intern Management, Principles for Designing an Exceptional Internship, is available on Amazon. So you can just get a copy that way very easily. The first book I wrote, How to Intern Successfully, that one's for the interns. And that helps them get out of their own way. Because if you remember, when you were in college, mostly you were in your own way. The book helps them get out of their own way because there's exercises, breathing exercises, meditative exercises, etc., to help them get past themselves so that they can be a real productive intern with you. So those are the 2 books. They're both on Amazon. In terms of reaching me, I'm available at robert@agilerainmakers.com. I have a website, agilerainmakers.com, and also robertjkhoury.com. Those are 2 websites we have. And on LinkedIn, you can find me there. And then on Instagram, Intern versus Manager, which we're super excited about the difference that's making for interns and managers, because we have a lot of our interns providing short skits and tips to help other interns and managers do the best they can. So those are some of the ways to reach out to me.
And we'll make sure we include links in the show notes as well. Well, Robert, this is a great time in the show where we make a transition. We ask every guest the same 4 questions before they go. And the first question is, have you had a miss or 2 on your journey and something you learned from it?
Well, believe it or not, I graduated from Princeton with an electrical engineering degree in 1990. And in a mini fab plant that we had, I specialize in electronic materials and devices. A mini fab plant, I built MOSFET and JFET, and it was my favorite class to do that. However, I had no interest in electrical engineering and doing that work. So talk about a miss. I missed the entire semiconductor revolution from 1990 through today and beyond. That would have been absolutely extraordinary. I missed it. But at the same time, it just wasn't an interest. But boy, coming out with a double E degree from Princeton, you would think this would have been great. Some of my classmates are extremely well-known folks out there in tech land. The second miss was in 1996. I'm interviewing Wall Street, and I just did not understand the culture, the difference in culture between interviewing and actually being there. So they're very particular about how you interview versus when you are there. Didn't get the dream trading job I wanted. And, that was another miss, but a great lesson. I learned a lot. And if I had to go back in time, I'd have it happen the same way it happened again. It's fine. Another miss is I joined this high frequency trading firm in 2004, and they offer me equity, which I take the equity a year later. But because of some internal changes, my equity, instead of $3 a unit, became $11 a unit. And then it wasn't issued till a year later when it was $25 a unit. So, it just caused so much stress, et cetera, having this, was supposed to be a great thing to have. But now I have to borrow money to pay for the units, pay for the taxes associated with it, all of that. It turned out okay in the end. But if I had just started literally 6 weeks prior, none of that would have happened. So that was another miss, and we could make this a whole miss podcast if you want, but I'll stop there with those, Tom.
I appreciate you being willing to share a few along the way. And let's talk about a make or two on your journey.
I was working at Price Waterhouse in the early 90s, really wanted to get some international business experience. And it took me about 9 months of applying, interviewing, talking, et cetera. And I was in the New York office. I landed this opportunity to work in Saudi Arabia for a year. So I worked in Saudi Arabia from mid-94 to mid-95. It was a total make. I absolutely loved the experience. I learned Arabic. I learned about the oil business. I traveled significantly. I earned enough money to pay for 2 years of business school at Duke, because when you work overseas, it's tax favored. It was absolutely extraordinary. So that was a total make. That shifted everything to get that kind of unique experience, plus being able to fund the next chapter of my life. So that was awesome. And then another make was in 97. I landed a trading job here in Chicago with First Chicago Capital Markets. And I really wanted to be a trader. It was, again, my dream job. And I got the opportunity, which absolutely was a huge make for me. Let's see. I'll skip to 2019. I hired this phenomenal intern. He was a sophomore at Princeton. He came in, and his work ethic and his smarts and everything, it was incredible. And he inspired me to go down the path of designing an internship program and then writing books about interning. And it never would have happened if I hadn't hired him. And it's amazing what the difference one really good intern can make for your business and for you. I highly encourage giving that a shot. And then the last make, I'll say, is in 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic. I got connected with a ghostwriter, John Selby. He'd written 30 books. We talked about the possibility of writing a book, and we came to the idea of internships, and he loved the idea. We worked on that collaboratively, and we ended up, putting together these 2 books to bring dignity to the internship discourse. Huge make. I love writing books. I love talking about internships. John Selby's a phenomenal human being. That's a total make in my mind.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those. Well, let's talk about a multiplier. The name of the show is Multiply Your Success. Have you used a multiplier to grow yourself personally, professionally, or companies you've worked for or run or operated?
So when I think of multiplier, I think about, being able to take something and expand on it, and potentially in a nonlinear way. So when I hire these students, they come from top universities, and how they multiply is I treat them really, really well. I train and develop them, share with them very transparently everything going on, and then they refer the next intern. So they refer the next group interns. They all know each other over the years. It's amazing in that sense. So in a way, I'm multiplying the internship opportunity that way. How I also multiply is I tend to leverage other people's strengths and what they enjoy to doing, and then I'll adapt that as a manager. So this intern his name's Hector, he decided to do this intern versus manager. I'm not an actor. I am not an Instagram person, but okay, this is this is something he's strong in and or wants to develop. This is something he enjoys. Okay, we're going to go down that path together, and I will adapt as a manager to manage somebody who's interested in that. And I think that leverages opportunities. Having now 70,000 followers on intern versus manager on Instagram, I mean, I think that says it all. And then I also will, like everyone today, I'll leverage, LinkedIn mainly, just to have a following and to get the word out. Ultimately, though, for me, I keep things simple. I keep them repeatable with only minor variations. So I'll do talks for colleges. I'll do talks for high school students as well that are interested in internships. And I didn't ever do the same one twice. I always make sure that there's some variation, but the base is the same. Not keeping it the same keeps it fresh, makes me think, makes me apply myself every time. And I think that helps everybody to grow. So that's how I define multiplier, Tom. I know other people might be more tech savvy than I am, but this is how I've chosen to multiply things.
I love it. Thanks for sharing. Well, Rob, the final question we ask every guest is, what does success mean to you?
Performing with excellence in whatever I'm doing. So, Agile Rainmakers advises high growth companies with strategic business partners. I want to do that with excellence. I've recently started executive coaching. Same thing. I want to do that with excellence. Starting recruiting again. I used to do that for years. That with excellence, writing books. So whatever I do, I want to make sure it's done with excellence. That for me is success. Secondly, though, you need some sort of like hard data on that. So client surveys, right? For me, success is a client survey is rated a 10 out of 10. And they refer new business as well. So that to me is another aspect of success. When it comes to the books, the data would be the Amazon reviews. Are they fives? And are the write-ups so unbelievable that you can't, they border on the unbelievable that they're that good on those reviews. But lastly, like for me, I'm more out to make a difference than to make a buck. I don't mind making a buck, but I focus on making a difference. And that's how I view success. And when you've made a difference because people are really happy to see you when you walk into a room, or they'll go out of their way to say hello to you. And so I focus on those things to ensure success. If no one's ever calling or emailing, and if I'm not, and no one's ever stopping me to say hello, I know I'm not doing a great job. These are the measures of success for me, but ultimately it's about making a difference. If anyone's out there who writes books, it's unbelievably hard to make money doing it. You don't write a book to make money. And I didn't write these books to make money. I wrote them to make a difference. Everything I'm doing now, in my 50s is to make a difference.
Before we go, is there anything you're maybe hoping to share or get across that you haven't had a chance to yet?
The one thing I'll say is that I would love to partner with business owners who are interested in growing their firms and doing it in a way that has integrity and in a way that leverages great college students. I'm open as to how that can happen. I'm not fixed on the way, but I do think there's a lot of opportunity for growth no matter where you are. I mean, if you're running your own business, you can make things happen. I love being a strategic business partner, and I also love training and developing young talent to help them succeed and help companies succeed with that. So that's the last thing I'll say, Tom.
Rob, thank you so much for a fantastic interview. And let's go ahead and jump into today's 3 key takeaways. So takeaway number 1 is when Rob talked about how to improve your intern selection and matching process. And he gave a few checklist items. He said you want to determine what you want in an intern, create an exciting job description, have a consistent interview process where you ask the intern candidates the same questions, get back to the student. So respond back to them. And that's a chronic problem. So let them know whether they're hired or not, or if you need more time. And the last thing Rob said was to schedule several meetings or phone calls prior to the intern starting to start building that relationship ahead of time. So for that little window they might be with you, that relationship engagement has already begun. Takeaway number 2 is when Rob talked about the difference between having small intern projects versus a large intern project. And his recommendation is that you give interns multiple small projects that might be 2 or 3 weeks each. So he said, for example, give them 5 projects at the same time so that they know what they're supposed to be working on. And this way, then, if they're waiting for decisions or something to happen with one project, they can start on the next. And he said interns generally want the projects to be meaningful, to have feedback, and to be exposed to as much or as wide of a variety as they can. Takeaway number 3, again, very practical takeaway here, are some examples of what intern projects could look like. And he gave a really simple one, which is to survey your customers. I thought that was great. When's the last time you've surveyed your customers? I need to take that advice as well. When's the last time we have? It's been a while. He said another common project, have the intern go through your website, look at links, find broken links, compare to other competitors. Look at it for SEO improvement. Another one is to review your social media. And he said these kinds of projects maybe take 2 weeks, 3 weeks each. And if you have 5 or so of those, that's a 10 to 15 week schedule of activities of things that they can be working on. And now it's time for today's win-win. So today's win-win is to remember that your intern is going to remember this experience for the rest of their life. Your intern is going to remember it. I know I shared this, but I vividly remember here it's been coming up on, goodness, over 20 years ago, well over 20 years ago, that I had my first internship. And I still remember so many fine little details about it and all the different little things that I was able to do. And so I think it's an important thing to remember and think about that person and what they're going to remember from the internship. And are they going to remember this as a positive experience, a negative experience, a neutral experience? And which one do you want them to walk away with? Because they are coming into their career and you are an important stepping stone for them. So if you're going to take on the intern, be mindful and considerate with it, because that intern's going to remember you're going to make a lasting impact on this intern. You never know where they end up, what they do, or what they become. They may end up becoming a business colleague or associate, or might end up working for you. Who knows? Maybe it's the next president of your company. That's this intern that's coming to work for you. And so that's the episode today, folks. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and give us a review. And if you or anyone you know might be ready to franchise their business or take their franchise company to the next level, please connect with us at bigskyfranchiseteam.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to having you back next week.